If you have an interest in horses and love learning more about horses, the horse industry, teaching, or even managing your own horse business, then you're in the right place. We would love you to join us on our mission, which is to improve the lives of horses around the world through the education of riders, handlers, and trainers. So get comfortable, listen in, and enjoy.
Today's chat's been brought to you by International Horse College. We have a mission to improve the welfare of horses throughout the world through the safe education of riders, handlers and trainers, and that's what these chats are all about. Registered Training Organisation 31352. Today's guest is someone who, we've had a few equine-assisted learning, equine-assisted therapists on the chat before, but here's someone who's really appreciated and been on the receiving end of all the goodness that horses can bring to us. I'd like to introduce you to Kathy Burns, who's authored a book called SHLEP, and we'll talk to her about that, about finding healing on horseback in the lower 48. How are you today, Kathy?
I'm great. How are you, Glenn?
Oh, looking forward to talking to you, Kathy. I've sort of gone through your book and I find it is an incredible story, and you're using horses to help you escape the life that you had, and the healing power of horses, I think, is pretty incredible, not something that is unknown to horse people, and I think it's been well researched, how much horses can help people. But tell me a bit about the word SHLEP. Is it a Jewish word? Is it a takeoff of the Jewish word?
It's similar to a Jewish word. It's pronounced the same, but it's missing a letter. But the word SHLEP in Yiddish means something like dragging your crap from one place to the other. And what I was doing was I was dragging my horses, all my critters, in a horse trailer from one state to the next. Mm-hmm. But it also stood for the things that I was looking for. I was in a very bad place emotionally at the time. I had just left an abusive marriage. And I was having a real hard time just functioning, the simplest things. And I couldn't afford to live in the Los Angeles area anymore. And I decided I was going to just travel around the country looking to figure out who I was again and to find a nicer, cheaper place to live. So the SHLEP stands for Soul Searching, Home Seeking, Liberating, Equestrian, and the P was for party to start off with, but I changed that later on.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, we can sort of talk about that as we go through. Now, I normally start off with a favourite quote. Is the SHLEP going to be the favourite quote, or have you got another one you'd like to introduce us to?
My favourite quote is Winston Churchill's never, never, never give up.
It sounds like you didn't. You didn't. Now, this healing on horseback in the lower 48, what's the lower 48?
The United States has 50 states, mm-hmm. but two of them are not attached. One's Alaska and Hawaii. Sure. So we call the big mass of states the lower 48. It's like a U.S. kind of expression. So I was doing all of those states. I was going to haul to each state and camp in the wilderness and ride my horses and do a painting in each state. And
that sounds like a pretty incredible journey anyway. Yeah. Where did you get this idea from? Thinking about the whole trip, the whole riding in each state, going to the lower 48, the idea, how did it come to you?
I'd hauled my horses up to Malibu with a friend right after I had filed for divorce. And I was going through interrogatory or something. It was like 50 questions from my to-be ex-husband that were total mumbo-jumbo to my fried brain. And I started crying, and I said to my friend, I just want to run away from the mess of my life. I want to go pack up my horses and just go ride around the country and figure out what to do next. And she goes, oh, that sounds like a really cool idea. And then when I mentioned it to my therapist a week later, she said, yeah, this would be really therapeutic for you. I think you should do it. And that was like all I needed was her endorsement was, okay, I'm going to do this. it gave me a year to figure out what I was going to do next.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Okay, so for people that go away and compete, sometimes we go away, we camp, we take our horses, but it's a lot different saying I'm going away, not just for the weekend or even for a couple of weeks with my horses. This is saying I'm going to places I've never been before, but, that's a year. Did it actually take you a year or how long?
I was on the road for 13 months. So, yeah.
Yep.
Longer than a year.
Yep.
No, and I was not going to places where there were facilities really very, a lot of times I didn't even have an electric hook or water hookup. So I was going into national forests or edges of national forests, and I was camping in the woods. And backtrack a second, I'd never gone horse camping before, and I'd never even...
ask you. Yeah.
And I'd never even owned a truck before. So I was really, it was like a romantic notion of what this was going to be like. And it was grueling work. I mean, I was in very good shape by the end of the trip because, just hauling, which was very nerve-wracking for me because I'd never pulled a big, huge rig like that before, and I was very nervous about it. And then get the horse set up. Sometimes there were corrals for me, but a lot of times I had to set up a portable electric fence to contain them. And crossing state lines, I had to keep their health papers current. I had to find hay along the way. It was a lot of work, physical labor. And then I rode each of the horses every day, and I was doing, 2-3 hour rides. And so I was physically spent by the end of the day, every day.
Now, tell us a bit about the horses. You took 2 with you? Yeah,
I took Dreamy, who was at the time, she was my main ride. She's a quarter horse mare.
Yep.
She's a big girl, 15.3, Gruya. And an awesome, awesome horse. She actually is my very first horse. I didn't get my first horse till I was 50. But she was bomb-proof, sturdy, great horse. The other horse I brought with me was my problem child at the time. She's my main ride now, but she was at the time a spooky horse, very athletic, but bullied the Dreamy. She pushed her around for food, so containing them in one place was always troublesome. And she was a bit of a bully with me too, and especially since I was your horses pick up on your strengths and your weaknesses real fast. Dreamy was the kind of horse that she would respect my wishes even when I was in a weak state. Wildflower, on the other hand, would take advantage of me. So, yeah, 2 very, very different horses.
Wow. And then camping, because you say that sometimes there was no power, no water. You took water with you, obviously, and water for the horses.
Yeah, well, the trailer had a 12-foot living quarters in it, so I had house water. It's like not a lot. That tank wasn't that big. But I had a 50-gallon water tank for the horses, which would last me, with the 2 of them, a couple days if I was in a primitive place. And sometimes I could find a stream. Sometimes there was water nearby, but it meant I'd have to lug it back. Or every place was different, and every place was different challenges.
And I suppose when because sometimes horses will go off their feed, they'll say this water tastes strange, they won't drink it. Did you have any occasions where the horses were off their feed, off their water, colicky, any problems like that?
Between my first state, Utah, and my next one, Idaho, I was worried about Dreamy because Dreamy, when I had first gotten her years before, I had colic surgery. So I was very aware of colic and what it can do. What I ended up doing was always making sure that I had some water from the last stop in the tank. I never let it run dry. So then when they added the new water from the new place, it was kind of a mixture. So there was never an abrupt change in the flavor of the water to them. I did have a situation later on in the trip where both of them were just refusing to drink the water. And in that case, I found a stream nearby, and they they drank that. But, I was very aware of that. And then the hay was another issue. I left the state of California. I only fed Timothy hay, and I was not able to find Timothy in most of the country. So I had to switch to a lot of places. I just had to switch to whatever was available. I had a few absolute no's. I would not feed alfalfa, and I would not feed Bermuda. So I was most of the time feeding orchard grass. But I'm totally obsessed over their food because of Dreamy's colic surgery background. So I worried about their food more than my own, probably.
All right. Now, just going back to the camping, you said it was electric fences that you put up for the horses?
I used step-in poles with tape and solar charger most of the time. There was a couple of times when that did not work because it was either overcast too many days in a row or tree canopy, and I did end up getting a marine battery and another setup like that. But that battery was very heavy, so I preferred not to use that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes,
and some places there were corrals, and some places there were barns. Everything was different. Every place was different. I had to have a lot of choices. Sometimes I high-lined them. I let them loose a lot. They were hobble trained, and I would let them out if I could find meadows or pastures to let them loose in.
Yep.
And I preferred, actually, if I was allowed to set up the electric fence, to do that, because it's one thing to go on a trip and leave your horse in a 12 by 12 area, but when you're doing it every day for a year, I just felt that was cruel. So I always like to give them a bigger space than that.
Yeah, yep. Now, Kathy, what year did you do this, or when did you do it?
I started in September 2013, and I finished the following year in October.
Did people find out about what you were doing ahead of time and offer you places to go?
No, I really kind of found my way on my own in the beginning, and then as time went on, I really didn't have social media on my side. I didn't really understand it. I'm an old fart, and I was a little slow to picking up on that. But halfway through the trip, or maybe close to the beginning, I found a Facebook group that is a really huge group now that was all about horse camping, trails and horse camping.
Yep,
and I would ask, I'm going to Arkansas. Where can you, give me some suggestions? They were giving me really good advice. And when I was in a campground where there were other campers, they usually would know where good places were in the adjoining states, and I'd get information that way. Mm-hmm. And there was another website that rated campgrounds by with people's reviews. So as time went on, I got a little bit better of trying to find places. But in the beginning, I just started with National Forest Parks list, and I had an overnight stabling guide that horse haulers use for my overnights, because very often it would take me 2-3 days to get from one campground to the next. I didn't want to haul more than 6 hours a day for the horse's sake. So I did a lot of overnights between campgrounds.
Okay.
And that book was really helpful for that.
Good, good. Now, what about, because when you did it, you said before you went, you're going to do a painting of a horse in each state. Did you end up doing that? You've got your 48 paintings?
I did. I didn't. I got 43 because I actually bent my axle in Montana, and so I still have 5 states that I didn't finish.
Oh, okay.
But but I felt like the goals of my trip were more emotional healing for me,
yes.
and I at that point felt like I was done. But I did do a painting in each state, and they were small because I had to fit all my supplies in the trailer. But when I got back to a studio, I've since done them, most of them, over in oils in a larger format.
Okay. And where are they now? Do you still have them?
I have sold quite a few. I still have quite a few.
Okay.
So because we're talking about close to 100 paintings, but I've sold quite a few, but not all of them.
All right. I mean, we'll do your contact details at the end. So if people are interested in getting a painting of a horse in their state, or just to see what you've got, we'll have those contact details. They'll be on horsechats.com Kathy Burns, or just go to Horse Chats and search for Kathy. Yeah. Now, Kathy, just thinking again about your trip, people, you said that you relied on the Facebook group and you were talking to people at campground that said, go here or go there, and you sort of had a bit of an idea. But was there one person in the trip that really stuck in your memory?
Well, there were so many people. But in general, horse women, I wasn't a really bad marriage, and I was kind of shy with guys. But I connected with so many wonderful women all along the way, people that would pray. They prayed for me, and nobody had ever prayed for me in my life before. And they would, if something was wrong, my generator wasn't working, one woman sent her husband over. He worked on it all day and fixed it. The people would find that I was alone. They would invite me to dinner. They'd invite me to ride with them. But horsewomen in general are just like an amazing group of people. If they see that you're in need or you're lonely or something's wrong, they just step right up to the plate. It was really, really wonderful and reaffirmed my faith in humanity.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Everybody that I met.
And I'm just wondering, of these horsewomen, did any of them have a similar story to yours, that, you could confide in them and talk to them and say, look, I'm going through this to get over this, and they could help you there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, our campfire talks were very interesting. Mm-hmm. Women, I think, in general, open up pretty quickly, and I would hear their stories of horrible. I mean, everybody in the world has a problem or has gone through some trauma, and at times, a lot of times, it made me feel like such a crybaby. Like these people had really suffered, and look, they'd rebounded, and they were, out there still, having adventures and having fun and having a life and rebuilding their lives. And so it was inspiring to me. And believe it or not, what was really surprising to me was that people were inspired by me.
Okay.
Because I just didn't think of myself as an inspiring person at all. But they were inspired by the fact that I was just doing it. I was just doing this journey.
Yep.
So, it was a two-way street.
Good. And, obviously they were horse people and found the same calm, I suppose, the same healing within horses that you did. Yeah,
you can't help but be healed by horses when you're around them. Mm-hmm. You just really can't. There's something so magical. And actually all of nature, it wasn't just the horses. It was like being in the woods and the mountains and the streams. And you can't deny that this is no accident. This didn't just happen.
Yeah.
There's someone up there that made all of this. And I think there's something really particularly special about the horse. Here's a 1,000-pound animal. Why do they let us get on their back? Why do they let us cry into their mane? And why, when you're riding in the mountains, do you feel? I feel an energy coming through my legs. It gives me power. It makes me feel strong and meaningful. There's something very mystical about the whole thing. My experience with horses.
Yep. If someone, was in a situation where they said, similar to you, and the first thing I do is say to read your book. Say they've read your book and they go, I think this is exactly what I need to do. I think I need to go on a camping trip with my horses, that may or may not take a year or longer. What sort of person, not what do they need as in a checklist, you need a truck or you need, facilities or whatever. What sort of person would they have to be to get started, to make it a journey and to accomplish what they set out to do, to take their horses and go on a bit of a road trip?
Yeah. Well, I did do a test trip, and I learned a lot from that. I had a million things go wrong, and I learned a lot from that. And then I had some time to regroup and fix up the things that I was totally ignorant on. And then, I would recommend doing a test trip. But I think that anybody that does a journey, whether it's a hiking the Pacific Crest Trail or any physical kind of challenging journey, that seems like anybody that's in emotional pain, those are the people that gravitate towards those types of journeys. This was not an adventure. This was a journey. Mm-hmm. This was a soul-seeking journey. And I think so people that are, feeling like, they really just need to go out there and get their head together to do something like this, to just do it. Because the healing that I found on that trip was so much more beneficial to me than any therapist could offer me. Mm-hmm. It changed my life. It gave me my self-respect and my esteem back again. And it wasn't just the monumental fact that I actually got through it. It's hard to explain. It was a million things that changed me. Mm. But I really encourage anybody that says, that sounds like a really cool idea. Not as like a vacation, but like if it's touching something inside their heart, that they should do it. I was very fortunate. My father totally believed in the journey and financially supported me and was constantly there with some kind of encouragement. So it helps if you've got somebody encouraging you along. And over time, I did have a following on my blog. I had a blog going time, and that grew over time, and people would encourage me along. Just getting those internet little messages meant a lot to me.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yep. Well, I'm just trying to think that during that time, you must have been proud that you were making progress.
I wouldn't say proud. Because to me it wasn't about like the physical accomplishment. I felt that I had nothing else. There were really good options in my life at that mm-hmm. moment in time, and that I really wasn't going to be able to come back and function in society until I fixed myself. So I just kept going. It was like the Energizer Bunny. Just keep going. Just go do it. Just like the steps in AA. Just put one foot in front of the other. Just 1 minute at a time. Just keep going. It gave me something to do. It gave me a purpose, which is really important to have a purpose. It's really hard to be emotionally stable if you don't have a purpose in life. Mm-hmm. So I just kept doing it. Just kept going.
Were you, I'm just thinking of challenges or being scared on the trip. Was there something that above everything else that you thought, this worries me?
I lived with fear 24/7 for so many years, and then when I went out on the road, I took a long time to shake that. I was fearful driving the trailer all the time. On my test trip, I destroyed the trailer. The horses didn't get hurt, but I did a lot of damage to the trailer. So hauling was very nerve-wracking for me. I had like the most important living, breathing things in my life were in that trailer, and I worried about them, their safety back there all the time. I never felt like I never met any creepy people. But I did have people in the beginning of the trip that insisted I had to have a gun with me. I had to learn how to use it, and I did. But I was more afraid of the gun, so that I might shoot myself with it. But I had in Florida. Okay, so I started the trip with a very sweet Labrador Retriever that had cancer, and in Arkansas, I had to put him down, and I buried him there. And when I got to Florida, I was ready for another dog, another companion, and I adopted a black lab from a shelter there. And he looked to me like, friendly black lab, right?
Yep.
Well, he was a super protective dog. I had to keep him on a leash most of the time because if anybody came up and tried to talk to me, he was going to rip their throat out. I'd never had a dog like this before, and he never was aggressive towards me, but he must up on my fear of other people or of men in particular because he just hated them. And it made me feel so safe to have that dog around me in the trailer. I knew that there was no one going to get past him. So I never felt physically in any danger like that. I mostly was afraid of things that had to do with my past life. Or, are my kids ever going to talk to me again? Do they think I've abandoned them? Is my husband going to ever allow this divorce to get finished with and the conflict settled? Am I going to end up homeless? Am I going to end up poor? I had those types of fears that were much more substantial than anything that was happening in the current situation while I was on the road.
Okay. Now, Kathy, just thinking, you've finished your trip. Where are you living now?
I'm living in Tehachapi, California, which is the southern end of the Sierra Mountains. I'm at about 4,500 feet in an equestrian community that has 50 miles of trails. I've got lots of land for my horses to run loose in a huge pasture, and it's horse heaven. I landed in an incredible place.
All right. Now, are you planning any more? What do? You're obviously, you've had this healing with horses and you want to spread your word. What are you doing, within the equestrian community? Are there people that you're helping, or are you spreading the word through your book? How are you doing this?
Well, of course, I worked on the book for a long time. I'm not a writer, and I had to work with a coach on that, so that took a few years. But right now that the book is published, I'm trying to do some marketing, doing interviews and stuff on the internet, trying to promote the book. In my day-to-day life, I ride my horses every day. I adopted another baby horse, so I've got another one. I'm on the Horsemen's Association here, and so I'm the trail boss for trail rides that we have within our community here. And in other things, I'm involved in a lot of church ministries. I am trying to put together an EGALA horse therapy program. I've got the space and the horses to do that here. I'm just trying to find the right therapist to work with me, to partner with me to do that. So I've got a lot of things in the fire. As much as I can. I'm trying to have a meaningful retirement. I didn't want to be retired. I'm 65 now, and I don't know about how it is in Canada, but down here it's pretty impossible to find a job at my age. So I'm trying to give back right now.
So if you were going to, just in a few sentences, summarise your whole philosophy with, how horses have helped you, the journey that you went on, spreading your message, what would you say just as a sort of a message for our listeners?
Well, most of your listeners already know the magical properties that the horse can give you. But I can't look towards the day that I'm not going to be able to ride anymore. I know that's going to happen eventually. I know I've seen my own riding slowing down, but I think we need to accept and embrace each stage of our life. And at some point, I'll have to just be content to brush them and feed them and sit on the porch and watch them out in the pasture. I can't imagine living without horses in my life. I didn't come to have a horse until I was 50, like I said before. And I'm sorry that I didn't. I think it could have saved my teenage years and my young adult years from a lot of self-destructive behavior if I'd had a passion like horses. They take up so much of your time and focus that you just wouldn't have the time as a teenager, I don't think, to do a lot of other self-destructive behavior. I think that, at every stage of the game in life, horses can enrich and enhance your life.
Yeah. Now, Kathy, if people would like to get a copy of your book, what's the best way to do that? Should they contact you direct?
No, they should go on to Amazon.
Okay.
And look for SHLEP by Kathy Burns.
Okay. Just go through that spelling again, because it's not quite like the Jewish SHLEP.
Oh, it's SHLEP.
Yep, no worries. worries at all. Look, we'll have a link to that anyway on your webpage, which will be horsechats.com/Kathy Burns. And if people would like to contact you direct, Kathy, can they do that? Is that possible?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook, and I have a blog. The blog is SHLEP.blog, SHLEP.blog. You can message me either way.
Okay, perfect. Kathy, thank you. It's been great talking to you, but I think also too, for people that are looking to use horses for a similar journey, one that they may have already been on, one that people are currently been on, great to get your message out, and I'm sure that you'll get people that completely understand this and will go through and want to read your book as well. So thank you.
No, thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to your listeners.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
If you've enjoyed this chat, then please comment, rate and subscribe. If you'd like any changes or recommendations for guests, then please contact us through horsechats.com. And while you're online, have a look at the government-accredited courses at internationalhorsecollege.com. Registered Training Organisation 31352.
Remember that our comments and instructions are general in nature and do not take into consideration your individual horses or your individual ability and circumstances. If you enjoyed this podcast, then please leave your comment below.